distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, welcome to another edition of our weekly press briefings. And let me say good afternoon and welcome to those following this live broadcast here from the Executive Mansion. To those of you who are following via online platform or radio or in the counties, we'd like to welcome you to this edition of our weekly press briefing. The press briefing, as we started, is an opportunity to inform the public about the happenings with the Executive Mansion. I'd like to also welcome the Deputy Minister for Public Affairs here at the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs. As I've said, that this is intended to inform the Liberian people and keep the Liberian people aware of happenings at the Executive Mansion, what the President is doing, his different activities to ensure that the work of the Liberian people are done. As you know, we've been away for pretty close to 4 weeks, I would say, especially for the regular press briefings. And I miss all of you guys. I'm happy to be back and happy to see you all here to continue your work. But while we're away, there are a number of things that the President have been engaged with, different engagements in and out of the country. But more so, I want to again thank you for continuing your work. As we've gone around, we were able to remain engaged with you. You carried the President activities, the President contributions, his different meetings and his different engagements. Once we communicate that with you all through our different press releases, you were able to publish that on your different platforms and inform the public. And as we have always said, we cannot do this alone, and we rely on the Executive Mansion Press Corps to inform the larger population. So I wanted to take this time to extend our appreciation to all of you who have come from different media institutions to continue to inform the public about the happenings of the Executive Mansion, and to also inform your different institutions that we are appreciative of the work that you do, despite being an independent press. And we will continue to work with all of you to strengthen the relationship between the Executive Mansion and the independent media, and also generally the Liberia's communication arm, especially the government communication arm of Liberia. Because without you, our work will be a little challenging because our platforms alone cannot reach all of the Liberian population. So from state broadcaster to OK to Fortune to Lux FM to Spoon to Lena to everyone who've continuously to Prime and who've continuously come here to cover the activities. I want to thank you very much for all that you continue to do for the Liberian people. I will continue to give a brief update on the President's activities, as we've always done. As you know, the President is currently out of the country. He's in Italy, where he had gone to engage different partners, but mainly to speak at the Food and Agriculture Organization's activities, where he delivered the keynote message. But prior to going to Rome, the President had a very busy activities in the United States of America, where he had, and this was his first address to the United Nations General Assembly of Liberia, despite as Vice President. But this was his first engagement, and he spoke on the plight of the Liberian people, our contribution, but also talked about the role we continue to play within the region and our bid for the non-permanent membership seat of the United Nations Security Council. And that bid is on, and is encouraging all of our partners, our friends, our neighbors, people within the region, even outside of the region, to support Liberia. Because not only Liberia being a founding member of the United Nations, but also a key player within the sub-region, and Liberia played active roles during the formation of some of the countries within our region. Liberia did serve as a hub for the likes of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, even the late Nelson Mandela, and Liberia within the foreign specs or the foreign space back then, according to history, played a key role, even in the formation of the African Union. Those of us who follow history, you will understand that Liberia, there were two groups. There was the Monrovia group and the Addis group that they were, having a discussion around the formation and foundation of the Organization of African Unity that turns out today to become the African Union. Even within the region, the Mana River Union, as well as ECOWAS. Regionally, Liberia being a very strong country, in our bid, for the UN General Assembly seat, will really put Liberia in a better position and regain that space within the international community, but more so to be a voice for the continent on regional issues, including this current issue that's happening in our region with the secession of other countries within the ECOWAS sub-region. So a number of things, especially also that we are a country that came from a period of 14 years of civil conflict, and we've been able to see, how far we've come, and being able to learn from our mistakes, and currently being one of the countries within the region who is really upholding the tenets of democracy with the successful holding of elections and transition of power from one democratically elected government to another, and continuing on that trajectory, putting in institutional frameworks to build our country. And the president believed that all of those, and once we selected and successful in our bid, can really help to put us on a better trajectory to, continuously advocate within the sub-region. And the president was also in Rhode Island after he left the General Assembly. He went to visit Rhode Island in Providence, and there too, he was meeting with key leaders, including the Speaker of the Rhode Island Parliament, as well as a member of Congress, who have been very instrumental helping Liberians to gain citizenship, but also to be able to have the United States support Liberians, especially as we know the relationship between Liberia and the U.S. did as far back as many, many years ago. So that engagement with Senator Jack Reed was honored by our president, and as well as the Liberian community over there, was something that is very dear to our president's heart. And he also invited Senator Reed to come to Liberia and also continuously engage for Liberia at the U.S. Capitol. From the United States, our president was back very busy, and came back immediately, went to call his cabinet meeting where they had a 2-day cabinet retreat. And at that retreat, there were a number of engagements, but more so a number of agreements that the government is undertaking to ensure that fiscally or financially put the country in a way where this coming 2025 national budget will focus more on ensuring that the budget is programmatically situated, meaning that there's going to be more focus on the program intervention. So roads became a top priority. It is part of the arrest agenda. It is definitely a top priority for His Excellency. There was a visitation to LEC. As you know, we have 2 seasons here, the rain and the dry. And the president had visited the Mount Coffee power plant, where a solar power plant there was a groundbreaking ceremony held there, and that ceremony was about ensuring that there is a solar farm that will be built there, and that solar farm will help to balance or to support the energy sector, wherein, as you know, majority of our electricity comes from the hydro, and dry season, it becomes challenging if the water there's not a lot of water within the St. Paul. So with the solar farm, it's going to help more to ensure that we have adequate electricity for the different sectors. The president is now, he just today, actually this morning, had a very important engagement with Pope Francis, the head of the Catholic Church, at the Vatican City there in Rome. And that meeting was one of the meetings in Italy, where the president is there to engage again with international partners, with people. Even part of his engagement in Italy, he's been meeting with different business leaders and institutions, all in the interest of making the case for Liberia and helping to support our sector. A conversation around a $50 million project was talked about. The team, along with the Ministry of Agriculture, will be, looking at the different feasibilities, and will be coming to Liberia to assess the possibilities of the investments and what needs to happen. So all of these visits, as we said before, they're all in the interest of, one, building the international image of our country out there, and also bringing tangibles, investments in Liberia. Because our president do believe that just the government alone cannot provide all of the jobs needed within the market of Liberia. What is needed is a vibrant private sector. So majority of his recent visits, are all in the interest of attracting international partners, business leaders, to come to invest in Liberia. And I'll just give you a very brief outcome of some of the visits that he's had so far, in addition to what I've just talked about. Recently, the president, as you remember, he visited China, where he went to attend the FOCA Summit, the Forum for Africa-China Cooperation. And out of that summit, right now, we've had a team who came from China to assess and do feasibility study on our energy sector. And I would like to announce to all of you here that the team have done a feasibility, because, especially so that when you ask, what the president is bringing from China, or all these visits. So in my hand is the feasibility study report of Liberia, Bomi. So there's going to be a 75 megawatt power plant, solar power, in Bomi County. And that feasibility study has been done. This is the report. And this is also an outcome of the FOCA summit that the president visited in China. And here is the feasibility report of the Liberia National Grid Modernization Project. So there's a planned project to modernize our power grid. And these are also outcomes of the visits, that the president went to in China. And I'm sure you all have been following of the overhead pass that is being worked on. And prior to now, we know Liberia and China have a very good relationship. But there were some diplomatic challenges, and most of the projects that China was undertaking was put to halt. And when the president got elected, he came back and he showed that he will re-engage with his diplomatic partners, specifically China. And those projects now have been activated. The overhead pass is about to be implemented. And I'm sure you have seen some active demolition happening around the area. And that was also an outcome of the summit that was held in Beijing, in China. And in Indonesia, the outcome currently, there is the conclusion of the Joint Commission. We did announce on our return from Indonesia that a Joint Commission was going to be formed, and that Joint Commission will communicate as to the relationship between Liberia and Indonesia. And I can announce here to you all today that the Joint Commission is completed. Upon His Excellency's return, he will be putting in motion by his signature those activities, and then you will also hear what's going to happen, because it's going to be between both Liberia and Indonesia. And still on Indonesia, the activities with the government and the GVL, Golden Beryllium Liberia Limited. We've been able to improve the investment conditions, particularly in the agriculture sector, where GVL was granted a 6-month tax clearance to be able to export because, to our understanding, there were a little bit of a hassle in there. And I did tell you earlier on about the modernization project, and this project is to improve the electricity system in Monrovia, and it will involve setting up smart meters and equipment to prevent power theft for about 60,000 homes and 300 businesses. And the project is around 57 million and will take 2 years to complete. And this is a form of upgrade between the Liberia Electricity Corporation. And this will mean that we'll be able to save a lot of resources, especially those that are going towards power theft. So this company, TBEA, was one of the engagements that the government and the president had whilst in China. And I did tell you also about the Bomi power plant. I'm outlining these to let the Liberian public know that our president's visitations to the different meetings, to the different countries, the intent is not to merry-make. The intent have never been, in fact, if you have the opportunity, I'm sure some of your colleagues who have gone with the president will tell you his schedule is really very packed. He's normally very busy from one meeting to another, and all in the interest of making the case for Liberia with the hope that these visits will have tangible returns. And as I've announced, you will see these things are taking root, and in time to come, you will hear a lot of what these visits are. And our office here, the Department of Public Affairs in our office, will make sure we communicate to the Liberian people on the outcome of these visits and how these engagements really, really helping the Liberian people. And again, I will just briefly talk about this allegation. We did read some information accusing His Excellency or the Office of the President of interference at the National Legislature with the current situation that's happening there. And this is to let you know the government have already given information. However, just to add that His Excellency has absolutely no interest in interfering in the business of other branches of government. One of the things that the president has done since becoming president was to start up an immediate engagement with all branches of government and major sectors as well. His Excellency started up with the engagement, as you all can recall, with the legislature, the judiciary. In fact, specifically with the legislature, the president did hold an engagement meeting with the speaker and the leadership of the House of Representatives. In that meeting, discussed lengthily a number of issues, but more importantly, on collaboration and coordination between the different branches of government. As we all know, the Constitution was very clear when it talked about the separation of power, but it says clearly that there are 3 separate but coordinate branches of government. And the president have been working assiduously to work with all branches of government. He's had meetings with the leadership, even the formal program that I talked about. He's also engaged the legislature, and he also have had meetings with individual lawmakers, all in the interest of building that coordination and support amongst the branches of government as the President of the Republic of Liberia. And he will continue to do that. As we speak, the President did invite the Speaker of the legislature with his visit to Italy. They're currently there. The President's interests have always been coordination. So with all of these allegations of interference or the President did this, the President did that, they're all distractions. The President's interest is to see our country move forward. The president had many engagements as well with the judiciary and other branches and other groups, the Muslims, the Christians, the young people, the disabled community. So when people come and give baseless and false allegations against the president, these are just, I call it just a political theatric activities. Our interest and the president's interest is to work for the Liberian people. Is to work for the Liberian people. And he has absolutely no interest in interfering in the workings of the legislature. His interest with the legislature is to work together for the betterment of Liberia. All those allegations that the president did this, the president wants to remove leadership, those are baseless. Baseless. The president has no interest in that. In fact, the leadership of the legislature enjoys the confidence of the president. The leadership of the Senate enjoys the confidence of the president. The entire legislature enjoys the confidence of the president. The president has gone on visits with other members of the legislature, even people who were quote-unquote very staunch opponents of the president. And all of the time they've visited, all of the time they've met, the discussions have always been, how do we work together for the betterment of the Liberian people? The Liberian people are interested in things that will have direct impact on them. Their food, their road, access to electricity. And those are the key things that the president is busy about. And we do not want to, get involved with these allegations that the president did this, those are all distractions. The president will be returning soon. On Sunday, he'll be back in the country. He will be at work on Monday. But I'd like to inform the Liberian people that the same Joseph Iman Boakai, senior you voted for, and the reason you trooped in line to vote for him has not changed. He is in charge of his government, and he's working every day, every night, every time, 24/7. He doesn't rest. He tells you that. He goes to his house, there are people there he's meeting. He goes out, there are people meeting. He comes here, there are people meeting. All in the interest of making this country better than how he made it. So the political activities, the distractions, even with his government, that's why you see today, when he hears these people are having problems, he takes his time, review what's going on, and takes his decision with all of the different things that are happening. I'm sure you've seen changes. And as the time goes on, you will see a number of different changes within the government. But I can tell the Liberian people that His Excellency Joseph Iman Boakai is the President of the Republic of Liberia. He's the man that was voted for. His concern is to make Liberia better than how he made it. He always tells us, think Liberia, love Liberia, and build Liberia. And that his interest is not about the next election. With all this craze about 2029, President Boakai is not interested in 2029 conversation. His interest is about how Liberia and Liberians can be better than how they were yesterday. And all of what he's doing is driving towards achieving that goal. So to those interested in the 2029 conversation and other distraction, he is not interested. He has no interest in leadership crisis or leadership issue at the legislature. He has no interest. His interest is the workings of the Liberian people. That's his number one priority. Thank you very much. I will take your questions.
Okay, thank you, Julius Quantum from Fortune Television. My first question, there are rumors allegedly going around that the president, upon his return, will take some drastic, allegedly decisions talking about reshuffle in government. I want you to clarify. And two, are there plans from the end of the president or his government to increase the salary of civil servants? Stop there for now.
Thank you, Madam Press Secretary. My name is Moses Packard, and I report for the Discipline. Earlier on, you said the president, as the legislature enjoys the confidence of the president and that of the judiciary. Does the president enjoys working with Councillor Fonati Kufa as Speaker of the House? Is he willing to continue working with Fonati Kufa? Two, during the president's special cabinet meeting, he stressed that he has been briefed on the code of conduct of public officials who are also holding other positions in political party, referencing, some of them. I don't want to name, but the point is, now that he's been briefed, what is he going to do? Because we still see those public officials still holding their quote-unquote positions in the party. What is he going to do upon his return? We expect to see some of those people stepping aside and stop the fire.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Sopon, and I report for Crown FM. You spoke well, Madam Press Secretary. Thank you for the deliberation. So quickly on the president travel to Canada, I didn't hear you talk about the outcome of the investment forum held in Canada. And the beat to that question is I wanted to know the cost attached to the 75 megawatts power plant in Bowman County. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Daniels, for OPFM. Just a clarity on something you said, that the president interest started on 2029. Is it a statement intending that the president will not go on 2029 or what? So please clarify that. And another thing is the president was, during the president ongoing visit in Rome, Italy, he held a meeting with the European Investment Bank, and it was geared towards getting a loan, a $50 million loan towards rice production in Liberia. It also coincides with the Ministry of Agriculture request for $50 million in the agriculture sector and to be allocated in the national budget. So can you tell us how significant would that be for the agriculture sector of Liberia, that investment? And my last question for now. The president, you've repeatedly told us that the president was reviewing the LECC report and that he would have taken action following that review. The president came back to the country, had a cabinet meeting, talked to a cabinet official, but instead he was asking them to declare instead of talking about action that you told us that he was going to take. So will the president still take action against his official, or he has taken a U-turn? Thank you.
Thank you for the first line of questions. On the first question about the Roman, whether there's going to be a drastic action in reshuffle, there have been a number of different calls, and we hear speculation. The president will do this, the president will do that. But the president, when he comes, he will engage his cabinet, and he's very clear. He said, even his last, when he returned from China, from the most recent visit from the UN, he was clear that it's time to get to work. It's time to get to business. And where there's a need to reshuffle, he will do that, where there's a need. And once he does that, you all will be informed. On the issue of incrementing civil servant salaries, in fact, on this, as you know, the civil service agencies have been one of the agencies that have really been working from the get-go to do a full assessment of the current stature and state of the civil service, who are those who are in legally or illegally, and what needs to happen. and they've been working very, very hard in saving the country some resources on quote-unquote ghost names and others. So upon the conclusion of that process, CSA will advise the president on what step to take, and then in terms of incrementing salaries and whatnot, or what other actions that will be taken, they will be communicated, and you all will be informed, on the CSA work, especially on salary increment. But one of the things that CSA, as well as the Ministry of Finance, is really working hard on to ensure that with the current state, there consistency and quickness in getting, pay and salary payment on time. They're working on that to optimize the process. And I'm sure you're aware that CSA also work with some financial institutions who are able to support the civil servants. You can go there before the month end, you can get resources, and then once you get your pay, you remit what you owe, those financial institutions. And those are all ways in which you want to ensure that civil service are active and that they have the needed resources. But on salary increment, once the advisement is given and the resources are allocated or identified, I'm sure the president is interested in ensuring that people get, they're paid for what they work for. The question on whether the president enjoys the working relationship with Speaker Fonati Kofa, I can say without any dwindling of an eyes, 100%. If it wasn't so, the president wouldn't have invited him to go to Rome to visit and have a conversation, but also to have a visit with the Pope, and engage in another strategic conversation on moving the country forward. The president, and in fact, if some of you may be aware, the president and Speaker Kofa have some relationship beyond just a political relationship, but they do have some family relationship. So I will tell you that he does enjoy the workings of the speaker and looks to ensuring that the relationship between the legislature and the executive, is smooth. Because at the end of the day, all three branches must work together so the Liberian people can really feel that the government is working. That's why it's government. Government is not just the executive. It's inclusive of the legislature. Again, the legislative internal politics, the president is not involved. They have their rules, they have their activities, they have their work, they do what they do, it's up to them. Whatever they decide, whatever institution, whatever the legislature decide to do or work, our president is interested in doing the Liberian people's business and not being distracted by legislative activities or internal issues that's happening over there. On your question about the code of conduct, holding political position, and the president has said this a number of times. The president has told people who are in power and people who are currently employed in the government and holding political position to decide the area. And he mentioned this a number of times, and this is something that he's serious about. When he gets back, he will be also engaging those individuals or the institution that have, you got to choose whether you want to be in the party or you want to be, because you have to uphold the code of conduct. On the issue of Canada Investment Forum, I'm sure you read right. Yes, the Canadian visit was very good as well because it started off, that was the first place that the team landed, and there were engagements with Canadian investment group, different groups, and some of them have even expressed their interest in coming. Some of them have made plans, to come and visit and engage in different sectors. So yes, you're 100% right. That was a very, very important investment forum, including the other investment forums that the president attended. Whether the president will now run in 2029. So when I said that the president's interest is current, the president is not looking at 2029 right now. The president was elected to serve. He was elected in 2023 for a 6-year term. His interest right now is to deal with the issues for this 6-year term. We're already to the end of the first year. And he's done assessment, he's met people, he's engaging, he's doing his different work. His interest is now. When we get to 2029, the 2029 conversations will be had. But now, the interest is 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and the current activities. The workings in education, in health, in agriculture, in all the key sectors, sanitation, the roads. President thinking about 2029, President wanted the roads to be fixed. The community road, even the last conversation we had, it was like, my interest is to make sure that we want the community roads to be fixed. So when people leaving their homes, they can come on good road. So at least when the motorbike or the keke or whatever it is, taxi, if they're riding on smooth road, they'll not put the transportation price up. That is his interest, not 2029. And when I mention 2029, it's the conversation around what's going to run, what's the interest. And he's really, and you've heard him said that if anyone have ulterior motive, and when he gets to know, he's going to take action. His interest is now in the issues of the Liberian people. He's not interested in the conversation of, for real, like, his interest is right now in the issues that the Liberian people are confronted with. On the issue of the European Investment Bank, and you are 100% correct. That was a very important meeting, and in fact, the president, prior to now, the president and his team have really been working to have a dialogue and conversation with key investment banks. And one of those was the European Investment Bank, along with the Ministry of Agriculture, have been engaging back to back. But this meeting was specifically in talking about a $50 million loan for rice production. Yes, the Minister of Agriculture talked about the need to have a $50 million budget this year to invest in the agricultural sector. But as you know, the agricultural sector is not just the rice component, but this loan conversation is around the rice production value chain. So if you see the rice itself, there is a full chain from production, from cultivation, from packaging, from services. So there's a whole value chain within the rice production chain. So the conversation was surrounding that, and it was just a conversation that's been had. The dialogue or discussion will continue. They will come to Liberia where necessary to engage the needed authority. That will happen, and then when they reach a point where there needs to be a full agreement signed by the bank, that will happen. And yes, with the $50 million that the minister, which is also a very good thing, especially if the minister is requesting for $50 million, and we've had this conversation. So there needs to now be a conversation around the prioritizing the priorities and see, because there are other commodities within the agriculture sector. Yes, you have rice, but you also have other areas. You have crops, you have cash crops, you have other things within the big agricultural sector. You have the plant, you have cocoa, you have all these different things. But if you look at the annual plan of the Ministry of Agriculture or the Liberia Feed Yourself plan and program, there are a number of different suggestions and programs and plans that are needed to be undertaken. So this will be a big boost should this happen to the agriculture sector generally, but I think there will still be more because the agriculture sector is not only the rice component, but there are other commodities that are needed. On the issue of the LACC report and assets declaration, yes, I did say here that the president had received the report. And in fact, one of the things that the president has said that, because as you know, the LSCC have been working hard to communicate to the Liberian people that the issue of assets declaration is not just the executive, it's the three branches of government. Even the report that was put out, you could see, yes, there are a number of people who within the executive have not declared, but also there are a number of legislators who've not declared, including the judiciary. The president's interest is to have a conversation with the three branches, because for him it's more about compliance. It's more about making sure that all the branches of government understand that our fight on corruption and as a government is holistic. Yes, his interest will be to have a conversation or to take action against his members of his executive, but more so to ensure that a conversation is had so that it doesn't appear that it's only the executives who need to, declare the assets. It's also the legislature and the judiciary. So that conversation is something that the president is interested in holding with the LSCC to see what form of insurance or what form of assurance or what form of support that they need to ensure that the legislature as well as the judiciary, because at the end of the day it's a holistic approach, and to help LSCC to gain, why they're doing this, because it's about compliance, it's about educating the public, it's also about the legislators themselves to, hold themselves accountable and declare the assets. So he's reviewed the report, and he will be, again, taking some action. When I said taking some actions, those are things that I meant, that he will engage the necessary authority, and when he says he will do this to his members of cabinet or whoever haven't declared, once he takes that decision, we'll definitely communicate with you. And there was a question about what is the cost for the the solar plant. So just a synopsis of the project. So the project, just to be very clear, the project will build a new solar power plant in Bomi County. The plant will generate electricity using sunlight and will also include storage batteries to keep the power. It will cost around 95 million and will take 2 years to finish. And the electricity produced will be used in Bomi and nearby areas, helping to power homes, businesses, and factories. The project will also create jobs and support local industries, and it is expected to pay for itself within a 10 to 12-year period. So that means this is a form of what they call you build and you operate and you transfer. So they themselves, the power will generate their own resources. They will be able to implement this, and they will sell, and they'll have private buyers, and the project will be able to pay for itself. Just to give you a synopsis of what the project is. So that is happening, and this project was also an outcome of the visitation to China. We'll take any questions that you have on next batch. If not, we'll call it a day.
One of the major things that many Liberians talk about, you asked the question about salary increment. One of the things that people held wholeheartedly was deharmonization, and that was something that the past government criticized. Is there any plan to undo the harmonization?
If you listen, I don't know if some of you followed the Minister of Finance appearance on LBS, but there were a number of conversations on what is happening. And the civil service, let's be realistic. The last administration added a lot of people within the service in a way, or with the different agencies. You go to some agencies who had, say, 300 people prior, and by the end of that tenure, you have over 700 or 1,000 people. You create a situation where the harmonization idea was, say, if you had a driver who's making $250 somewhere in one minister's office, and then you have another driver making $500, the idea of harmonization was to ensure that those drivers make the same money, and then the remaining can go to the national coffers and reallocate it for something else, or to increase those, people who, if you know a driver is working really hard 24/7. Some jobs you work really, really hard, and it's non-stop, especially those working around the executive in key agencies. However, that wasn't the case of what we saw. You reduce salary, and then brought on more people And then the essence, you just have more people with very limited job or not much job to do, but the fact that because you wanted to increase. So it became problematic. It is problematic as we speak. That is why the CSA is putting in all sort of modalities to assess, to see agencies, even to the point where they're doing head count, to see who's there, who's alive, who's not there, who's coming, who's not coming, who's legit, who's traveled, and all those things. And it's not just a single approach to say you want to do away with this. Any government's policy, before it's implemented, there's a conversation that happens at the end. And if it gets to a point where that policy is not relevant anymore, the government will do all the different assessments. Yes, I've heard there are a number of different arguments here and there, but the goal of CSA is to do a full plan of all the situation within the civil service, and then we'll recommend, as I've said. So it is not official to say, oh, the government is going to do away with the harmonization. But the realistic thing is, truth is, harmonization affected everyone. There are people whose salaries were harmonized, people who are working really hard, doing more jobs, but they're getting very limited salary. So it's a holistic approach. So at the conclusion by the CSA will report, and with the involvement of the Ministry of Finance, and see what is advisable, and also our international partners, because as you know, Liberia is a member of the international community, but also we have international partners, and we have some agreements that we've had, and there's some discussions that are ongoing. Again, once we get to that point, if the CSA team, Ministry of Finance, sees it feasible and advise the government or the president on specific actions relating to doing away or adding or adjusting or increasing salary, that conversation will be had, and will be a major conversation that will be discussed with the Liberian people.
Yes, again, Julius, one last batch of questions. Again, thank you. Madam PPS, when the president took over, he started on a very proactive note with the fight against drug. Of recent, we've now heard more. Can you give us some update related to the fight against drug? And my second question, I'd like to take you back to the allegation linking allegedly the president to the crisis at the House. This particular allegation is coming from a senior figure. Is the president taking this particular allegation seriously, or what is his response in this regard? Talking about the former president linking the current president to the saga at the national legislature.
I've said this, Julius. This is not something that the president is interested in. Like I said, the president has tried and is trying to get away from the distraction. And the former president, because it's not the first time the former president is accusing the current president of different things. I mean, the airport thing, this other thing, that other thing, is the president is the president. But we've responded, like what we said earlier, and you've also listened to the Ministry of Information, and we're again reiterating that the president is not interested in side conversations or accusation. And the thing is, everybody accuses the president of everything. Somebody woke up, they stormed the door, oh, not the president. Somebody woke up, somebody go see, somebody phone, oh, not the president. Somebody do, oh, not the president. So if the president just sits down and say, all the allegations I'm going to focus, he's not going to do anything for the Liberian people. But this is just to say that, I mean, this is not the first time the former president is accusing our president, but I can say the president is not involved. I've said this. The president is currently with the speaker, and the speaker enjoys the president's confidence. His interest is to work for the Liberian people, Julius. It's not. The president is not interested in all these different accusations. Everybody will call and say, the president, so my hair is not the president. My forehead is not the president. But his interest is the Liberian people. So, no, the president is not involved in whatever leadership hullabaloo is happening at the legislature, and his interest is the Liberian people, and it will remain so. To your question on drugs, the fight against drugs from day one, in fact, if you follow the campaign, you know the president did talk about this. And he takes it very seriously. When he was elected, he set up a team, there and then, appointed LDEA team. There was a problem there, he took immediate action. He currently appointed an acting head. And when he comes back, you also see the deputies will be appointed. Because he takes this very seriously. That's why he didn't just rush on things. You know, there's a Liberian parlance that say when you rush, you crush, or hurry, bus strasser. But because he takes this very seriously, that is why he wants to do everything he can to ensure that the drug epidemic is done away with. Because it's a problem. Majority of our young people, some of us, we are victims. Some of us have direct family members who are victims. Our borders are porous. Every day he talks about beefing up the security, the army, the military apparatus, all the different security sectors to help with border patrol and other things, looking for support, talking to partners, to engage, to talk, to support the Ministry of Health, the LTE and all that. So he's very interested in that, and he will continue to do what he can and do his best for that. So thank you all so very much. You got one more?
Yeah, just a follow-up.
All right.
So it's relative to still to the crisis at the legislature. You've
But
said,
the crisis, but you're really serious about today.
you said the president has no interest in what's happening at the legislature, that he enjoys the confidence of the speaker, and the speaker enjoys his confidence. Now, what's happening at the legislature has the propensity to stall government's operations vis-a-vis the president's arrest agenda, because the legislature has got a major role to play. And don't leave the table, for example, the budget is going to go before the legislature. So if this conflict continues, that has the propensity to undermine the president's development agenda. Will the president be willing to call the both parties together now that he enjoys the confidence of Speaker Kufa, and one of the persons leading this quote-unquote removal is from the president's camp, who contested against this book? Will he be willing to have a sit-down so that his programs will not be stalled by the crisis at the legislature?
That's a very important question. That's a very good question. And I will say that you're right. Any form of crisis within any branch of government is not good for the overall workings of the country. Any crisis. So the government is like a functionalist, form where the head, the leg, the throat, when one thing is hurt, the entire body will not function properly. The president is in Rome. He will be coming soon, like I said, on Sunday. He's there with the speaker. I'm sure the speaker has briefed the president on what's happening. And the president, being a man of wisdom, being a leader who listens to everyone, he will try to understand what's going on and see where his help is needed. But it's a decision that the president will make, and you're right. The interest is to ensure that the House is in one accord, because when something goes to the legislature, that's why I said separate or coordinate. The budget goes there, key programs, even all of the different investment engagement that the president is having, the $50 million that Joseph talked about, and other investment packages that are pending, they all have to go to the legislature. And when it gets to the legislature, it has to be looked at and signed. If it's an agreement to help the Liberian people. So if there's a problem, it's going to be a problem for the entire country. And no president will be happy to see a legislature in disarray, that his budget, his activities cannot get through. So when the president comes, he will understand the full nature of what's going on and see what role he can play. But again, bear in mind that the legislature is a separate branch of government. They have their own rules and orders, they have their own procedures of what to happen, where it's necessary. If they see it, if they deem it necessary to get the counsel of the president, that's a separate issue. But I can say, the president will want a house that's in one accord, and they'll be able to work together. And again, like I've said, the branches of government are separate. They run their things, they do their things. And the Liberian people will know if they're deliberately stalling the process, and if they're doing things that they shouldn't do in that way. But again, the president will be here soon on Sunday, and he will get a briefing. In fact, he gets daily briefing on everything happening in the country, so he's aware of what's happening. The Minister of State for Presidential Affairs updates the president every day on the different happenings of the country, and then when he gets back, he will be engaging further on different things. So I'm very again happy. Thank you all. And I'll finish. This was important to go because it's been a long time since we did this. We see all of you, and I look forward to engaging with you all on Friday. And get ready during the dry season. The president will be going out of town. The county tour is coming up. So you will see a lot of the president on the road. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful Friday. Friday for everybody.
Thank you. That was the presidential press secretary there with the executive mansion weekly press briefing. Folks, this is how I would like to say goodbye. Enjoy your weekend and see you next time.